How's it going, bros? My name's PewDiePie. Blah 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 blah. Alarm clocks. Welcome to the origin of all beginnings. Yes. 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 Oh, come on. Yes. Damn. Hi, my name's Kieran Nakam. I am a talker on the webs. I talk on the internet, and people are supposed to listen to what I say, but no one does. No one listens to what I say, but they really should, because I have some interesting ideas, and the following is an interesting idea. Have you ever thought about origin? The idea of origin. So not some kind of, I think is origin a Pokemon? No, origin, origin comes from Tales of Symphonia. In Tales of Symphonia, there was a spirit called Origin, who is at the origin of all things. Oh, the origin of all creation. And I'm assuming there's probably a bunch of people in the world who are concerned about origin, our origin. Where does life come from? Where do human beings come from specifically? But also, where does matter come from? The origin of matter. Where does the universe come from? The only universe. But there might not be a universe. There might be a multiverse. Where does the multiverse come from? Welcome to What the Fuck. Yes? 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 Alright, I'm gonna stop being an idiot. I've actually been pondering this idea. Pondering is a word that means thinking. For those of you who don't know what pondering means, it means thinking like this. That's what pondering is. There's also wondering. Wondering's more like this. But I am pondering. I just ponder. Just the regular pondering. Not too much thinking going on over here. But yeah, I've been thinking about the origin of the universe. Everyone's talking about this origin thing as if it was a valid concept. And I have come to the conclusion that it is not. It's not a good concept. Let's start off with a couple examples, all right? So where did origin come from? You got to remember every concept has some kind of like origin. Every concept is born from experience, from the universe, from something that we see around us, right? And the concept of origin, I think, was born similarly to the concept of nothing, right? Which is not a good concept to begin with. I've already talked about how nothing is not a good concept because we're assuming that from the point of view of existence, it must have come from somewhere. And because we define ourselves, say, a human being as a thing, and we know that we, as human beings, were nothing before. There's a point where we can't remember, and we've learned from our parents that at some point they conceived us as human beings. And this process of creation is now the reason, I understand, I come from nothing. But really, we don't come from nothing. We come from our parents. We are a big machine made from DNA, and the DNA comes from our parents. So perhaps this current form that we have comes from nothing, but there's a reason why we come from that thing. And so now I find myself looking at the physics landscape, and I see everyone talking about what is the origin of life? What is the origin of matter? What is the origin of the universe? People bringing things back to the Big Bang and not even thinking about it. Not even going, well, can there even be a before the Big Bang? Can there even be an origin to matter? And people aren't wondering this question. And I ponder, why aren't they wondering? The universe doesn't need to be one thing. In fact, when we look at the universe, the only reason we call it a universe is because we are too small to notice, first of all, its boundaries. And also, we are too focused on the big picture to notice the small picture, which is why we need science in the first place, because it breaks things up into pieces. But we've still somehow maintained that those pieces make one whole, instead of just going, hang on, the world is just pieces. Why do we even need this whole? to begin with, this universe to explain. I've been thinking about how to put into question the entire physics understanding, because I won't talk about it in this video, really. I don't want to, because it's a big claim, and you have to bring evidence, you know, like, what's the thing? The larger your claim, the more significant your evidence must be, basically. I totally agree with that, and I have some I want to say significant evidence. Yeah, it's pretty damn significant, but it's also not complete, and so I'd rather not talk about it. But it has something to do with recreating a force of nature. Recreating gravity. I'm just going to say it, really. I have discovered something interesting about gravity, and because because I know how big it would be if it were true in the physics community, and specifically because it doesn't just change the way we see gravity, but it also explains another phenomenon, dark matter. I want to be delicate. I want to be delicate with it. I don't want to blurt it out, and I also want people to understand the reasoning behind this, because it requires a lot of changes in how we think. And this is the reason why I'm doing multiple videos like this, talking about nothing, talking about dimensions, is to frame the well, I can't call it a discovery just yet because it's not certain, but to frame the idea that seems to be bringing back some interesting results. And weirdly enough, I don't need the evidence in this case. I'm not saying I don't need evidence. I'm saying that the evidence is already made in the form of astrophysical pictures, specifically of planet Jupiter. And I don't need to give any evidence. All the evidence is there. I already got the pictures. It's just that I've actually created a theory that seems to work with the picture. But I don't know. I really don't want to go into it too much right now. But the idea behind this series of videos is to try to explain the context of how I thought about everything, because I sense that even if there is a decent amount of evidence for this idea, that people are going to reject it because of all the peripheral ideas that they have to put into question. And scientists are not the most open-minded people. No offense, but you guys love your laws. You love the Einsteins and the Newtons, and you praise them as if they were Jesus kind of characters that weren't God-given, right? They had to work to become Jesus, but they still end up being Jesus in your minds. And it's like, there's only few scientists who really put these people into question as if you could put them into question. A perfect example is Arthur Eddington. And I don't know if this maybe was a 20th century thing, and now we're in the 21st century and scientists are different. But Arthur Eddington, the guy who, for those of you who don't know, I'm not too sure about his life either, to be honest, but I think I know who he is, more or less, was an astronomer, not an astronomer, well, maybe an astronomer or a star observer. Well, he I'm not too sure what he was exactly, but he's the guy who helped Einstein observe the slight distortion of a star near the edge of the sun, which would be the key validation of Einstein's general relativity or special relativity. Because again, I'm a beginner physicist. I want to put it out there. I have to be honest and humble, right? I don't know everything, but I know enough of the pieces to be able to build a blurry picture, an accurate blurry picture. Kind of like that picture of a black hole y'all took recently. No offense, but it's pretty blurry. All the amateur photographers were like, but we took it with satellites from different parts of the Earth. It wasn't satellites, I know. But we took it with random telescopes from different places on the Earth, you motherfucker. But they're still like, it's not about your methods, it's about the results. The results looks like shit. But my point is, we can take blurry pictures to begin with. Arthur Eddington specifically said, if your theory goes against the second law of thermodynamics, then there is nothing for it but for you to collapse in the deepest humiliation. Like, it's basically saying don't question science, which is literally the whole point of science, was to question. So that guy didn't get it. Maybe that's why he was looking at stars and not thinking about shit. He was the photograph taker. He's that guy. Nope. Scientists are, in my view, a little bit closed-minded. Even if they want to think themselves open-minded, they're only open-minded once you bring the evidence. If you bring the evidence, then suddenly everyone opens their minds. But before you bring the evidence, if you're talking about philosophy and laying the groundworks for ideas, suddenly everyone's like, no one knows how to accept information that doesn't have any controversial evidence. But first comes ideas to be able to build telescopes or particle accelerators or whatever you need to maybe prove the idea to be correct. I think that some scientists will be like, they're pondering, you know. Some scientists will be into this open-mindedness thing, but I don't think most of them are. So this is why I create this video series. And one of the big things that needs to be explained is the idea of origin, because I don't think it's necessary. And I think we need to rewrite our brains, because I've been thinking like this too. And I was like, okay, so from my previous videos, stuff is made out of stuff. And that stuff is made out of stuff as well. And that stuff is made out of stuff, and that stuff. So it's unending. But then I'm like, there's this part of me, this visceral part of me is like, but where did it start? And I was trying to somehow explain how an unending thing could begin. And then I realized, wait, I'm doing something wrong. I probed my mind a bit. Probing is a different one. The probing is this. There's pondering, wondering, and probing. Introspection. I was probing this idea of something within a thing, within a thing, within a thing. So the universe is not one thing. We don't need to explain where the universe comes from. But surely we need to explain where every individual thing that we call the universe comes from. And we do. We do it with physics. And then I realized, wait, I've explained it. I've explained where it comes from. Because the universe is not one thing. The universe is a multitude of things. And so we've already explained where those things come from. I've explained where humans come from. Well, more or less, right? They come from DNA, and then that DNA was born from RNA and amino acids and the primordial soup and specific conditions on planet Earth. And it may have originated from space. The basic molecules. I heard the basic proteins. My understanding is vague. Remember, vague pictures, guys. Can be made more easily in space clouds, and then they would land on Earth or be moved in by comets. This could be a process that happened. I say could be because it's not obviously entirely sure, because this happened billions of years ago and we have no direct evidence. But apparently this may be a possibility. And so humans are explained, technically. And so then we explain, well, where do the proteins come from? Okay, well, the proteins come from specific processes as well, right? And they come from, they're made from different types of atoms, elements, right? And so you explain the elements, and then suddenly you're in physics. You're in physics land. You're explaining particles now. You're explaining electrons. You're explaining, and so then now all we have to do is explain electrons, and explain protons. We do technically with quarks. Then you keep explaining it. And there's no reason why it wouldn't go on, but then you explain it. And so you're explaining how every individual becomes a thing. And that is the origin. And we don't need to explain the universe, because the universe is not one thing. And that's the epiphany. You don't need the origin of the universe. And that's the issue. We're trying to explain the origin of a thing that is not a thing. And if we did, okay, say we did define the universe first, not as just, the vague, maybe a whole thing, all of it. It's like the Ruliad, the thing that I talked about in the past. It's just like, there's all possible rules. Well, define the rules then, please. Show them, write all the rules down, and that'll be the Ruliad. No, well, I can't define all the rules. It's just the idea of all the possible rules. Oh, you got me. It's not necessarily true just because someone says all stuff. It's like saying God is all powerful. God is all knowing. Okay, but so what exactly does he all know, and what exactly does he all power? What exactly can he all do? And I gave the example a long time ago. You know how people say that to disprove the idea of God, you can take a rock that God cannot lift. So you can tell God, create a rock that you cannot lift. And then, paradox. Everybody loves the paradoxes. But really, this idea is a little false, because you can't just create a rock that you cannot lift, because the idea of lifting a rock makes the rock an identity. They're a specific thing. So you are either strong enough or not strong enough to lift this particular rock. And so a rock that you cannot lift means a rock that can be whatever it wants to be. You're creating a nonsensical rock idea to explain how nonsensical God doesn't exist, or all-powerful nonsensical God. What you can draw from this little example is that it seems as though everything is made from stuff and can relate specifically to other stuff. And so an all-powerful God means nothing, because you would have to define it compared to everything before the stuff is even made. Like this stuff that hasn't been created, levels of complexity that the universe hasn't reached, and yet God is all-powerful, is somehow able to interact with all these things. But God must have been born somehow. I went a bit off topic for a second, but that example is a good example of how we don't actually understand these concepts very well of allness. And so the universe is the perfect example of an allness concept that we don't really understand. And we're just going, all of it. How is all the universe created? It wasn't, because there was no all universe. There was only a specific delineation that you can make for the universe. So say I go from quark level to galaxy level, right? Or supercluster level, or the definition of a galaxy, right? And it keeps going in forms of superclusters, but technically it's a bunch of galaxies. And then it becomes the filament. So maybe up to filament level, okay? Now we've defined our universe. How was that born? Well, that's very easy. We simply have to define how the quark was born, and then we find the process, and there was a process, and there's a specific thing that makes up the quark. It doesn't have to be a thing, remember? It can be a formation. And I got that from the idea of Jupiter going around. Jupiter goes around and creates this tripole of attractive gravitational stuff, basically, within the orbit of Jupiter. There's Jupiter, and then these two other points, which I don't know the name. And so the quark is that limit. The quark is the origin. So before the quark, boom, that's the nothing. That is your nothing compared to your defined thing. And so now you've explained it. And there's no weirdness of like, oh, it goes on forever. No, because you've defined the actual thing you want to explain. The reason why you might be confused as to what goes on forever is because you're not breaking it down. This is one of the things I actually learned from math. I was trying to figure out elliptical trigonometry, and I struggle with algebraic versions of this. And like, you know, the 1 over root of the tan squared. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't understand where this comes from. So I made my own version of it based on logic, right? And I built two circles, and I originally I was so lost. I was like, how do I transition from this circle? I might put the diagram on. There's a circle in the center, and there's a circle on the exterior. And I was like, how am I gonna transition? How do I get the ellipse that's in the middle? And I felt like it was going to be the transition from the sine and the cosines of one circle to the sines and the cosines of the other. And it was going to transition. I was like, how do I get the transition? I was trying different things. I was trying to square it. And I was like, it's not exact. It's not happening. And then I realized, wait, break it down. And that's when I made this diagram. And when I made that diagram, I was able to see physically. I was like, wait. The sine segment here of the ellipse is the same thing as the sine of the circle, of the smaller circle, of the circle of radius of the minor axis of the ellipse. And then I realized, wait, the cosine is the cosine of the larger circle. And I was like, it's so simple. It was so simple all along because I broke it down. And that was one of the lessons that teaches me that you can't always just go off into your head and go, la, la, la. You can't always ponder, wonder, or introspect. So now you have to rewrite the way you conceive the universe. It's no longer a universe. It is a multitude of stuff. And it's not a multiverse. It's the same thing. The idea of a multiverse would be you have to define these exact things. Physics has been allowed too long, in my opinion, to go off on its tangents without justifying them. I go off on my tangents, but I justify every single reason why I go off on a tangent. I come back to a point. This reminds me of when I was a smoker. I used to smoke weed a lot. And we would go off on our little adventures and we would never finish our points. And it was fun, but also it went nowhere. And it's the same thing here. You have to get somewhere. You can't just go all. You have to explain all. Physicists who go, oh, you're being a philosopher and I try to define all the terms. And don't you, in math, define all the terms of your equations? If equal is not equal to equal, then it makes no sense. If plus does not have a specific meaning, it makes no sense. Divide, same thing. These rules are rules, and concepts are the same. Sentences are the same. Words are the same. You use a word specifically to mean something, and not something else. Otherwise, we would use the same word for everything, and we'd be saying the same stuff. We'd be saying, and you would understand me. You'd be like, I understand it, just because of the context or something. But it's not the case. We actually have to use these words specifically, define them. So same thing with the universe, and same thing with origin. Where does origin come from? I can't see it anywhere. My name's Kieran LeCam. I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think? I keep saying, what do you think? I genuinely want to know what people think about all these ideas. But I'm also not going to be swayed necessarily by what you say, because I need to know that you're responding to what I'm saying rather than just bringing up your own ideas. Just going, no, because I learned this thing. A lot of people will probably do that if ever they watch this video. They'll go, yes, but your idea maybe, but I don't care about what you said, and I'm not listening. But also, I learned this in school, and I learned quantum mechanics, and I learned this, and I learned, well, yes, but okay, but there's a reason why those things came to be, and I'm explaining the origin of physics, if you like. I'm explaining the origin of why we started to conceive of all these ideas, and you need to explain these ideas as well. Otherwise, you can't just go back to your lessons in school. You have to go further back, right? You have to start learning for yourself now. But this is the end of the video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Guys, please help me out. Please subscribe. I know I should have said it in the middle of the video, whatever. This is a long video, 20 minutes or 25, whatever. And I need your help because I'm genuinely struggling. I'm trying to figure it out. Can't figure it out. I suck, okay, at all this promotion stuff. I'm not good at knowing where to put my videos, what to do. I want it to be somewhat organic, but also there's nothing organic about the internet. The internet is not organic at all. It's a series of rules, there's algorithms, and so I'm really good at like navigating life and going outside and meeting people, but I'm not very good at all the internet stuff. This is where I definitely need someone to teach me to learn. Okay, please help me learn, because I feel like the content is good enough, but I don't get views, so it's a little frustrating sometimes. So I'll keep going, but please, if you can, subscribe or like or comment, and I'm sure that will actually help the video be more visible and get to more people, and hopefully they will not understand it as well. I'll see you in the next video.